Good morning, everyone. My name is Sharon Lopez with the Temecula Chamber of Commerce, and I'd like to thank you all for joining us this morning for our Wednesday webinar titled New American Rescue Act of 2021. I'd like to also thank and welcome our presenter, Robert Rosenstein with the Law Offices of Rosenstein and Associates, and also one of our Temecula Chamber board members. Before I hand it over to Robert, I'd like to let everyone know that there will be time for Q&A. If you have a question, please submit it into the Q&A box. Also, as a follow-up, we will be sending out a follow-up email that will include the recording of this session, and that will be sent after we end the session. If you have not submitted your full name and email address to receive this follow-up, please enter it in the chat box, and I'll make sure to send that over to you. Now let's begin. Robert, I'll hand it over to you. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Now I got to get my video.
Video? Okay. Yeah.
You got me blocked on my video.
Are you able to?
It says you cannot because the host has stopped it.
Okay. Okay, try now.
There I
There
am.
you are.
Hello, everybody. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I have to tell you, in the last year, I've had wear a tie 3 times. I wasn't sure I could tie it this morning. Um, I'm Robert Rosenstein. I am a board member, and before I get started, just a comment. If anybody is joining us that is not a board member of the Temecula Valley Chamber of Commerce, I can only encourage you to become a member. This is not a paid commercial, it's just a commercial. But it's very important that you join if you're not a member. There's a lot of good things that are going on, a lot of training like this, and also connections as we're dealing with everything that's going on with COVID and just reopening. The other thing I want to say is if you have staff members or yourself, if you have not been continually being tested, even if you've gotten the vaccine, please encourage people to get tested, because as people are stopping to get tested right now, it's preventing us from being able to go up another tier. We're now fortunately in the red tier, but we need to go up so we can even open up more restaurants and more activities in Temecula, and of course all of Riverside. I'm going to try and look for questions the best I can as we go along. But again, we'll have a Q&A at the end. I'm going to try and share my screen here. Let me see what I can do. Okay, now, I will say that as we get started, being a good lawyer, I have to make sure everybody understands that this is a general information that is nothing specific for any particular business or for any particular individual. If you have a specific needs, please consult with your attorney. If you don't have an attorney, get a hold of an attorney. Attorney should meet with you for the first half hour at no cost or even longer. It is not to give you advice, it's for you to be able to determine if you're comfortable with the attorney. Okay, let me get there we go. We are the law offices Rosenstein and Associates. We are located next to City Hall. We were here first. I jokingly say that City Hall liked our building so much they decided to put City Hall next to us. I'm not going to go into a lot of information about myself. You can look at our website. It's a hard website to remember. It's thetemecula.lawfirm.com. I've got over 41 years of experience, over 28 years here. We've been recognized by the American Bar Association, one of the top attorneys. We provide business transactions, business reorganizations if necessary, including Chapter 11 bankruptcies, estate planning, audit protection, business litigation, and things really just to do business. The only individual work that we really do is we do some estate planning. Okay, I'm going to go right into the what we're dealing with the CARES Act and the extension thereof. And the reason I'm saying that is you look at this bill. Oh, I got a typing error there. Forget that. Sorry about that. I just noticed that. I must have had a weird spell check. It should say 4 additional benefits. I apologize for the typing error. I'll correct that. The act that was passed is called the American Rescue Plan Act. It is really nothing more than additions to both the Internal Revenue Code, to the Social Security Act, as well as to extending the CARES Act. My goal is not to go into the nitty-gritty because we just don't have the time. So what I'm going to try to do is hit the highlights. I am not going to go into a whole bunch of detail with the first point. The slides are very short because most of it's going to be talking about the changes in the law. But let me deal with the first one, which is everybody's been talking about. And by the way, checks are being received, or actually direct deposits are being received today. You can go to the Internal Revenue Service, irs.gov, and see where's my payment. It will tell you exactly what account it's going into and when you can expect it. People we've been checking for at their request, they are showing up today. Everybody's heard about the $1,400 stimulus check. This is coming out. Basically, it's for people that are of a moderate income level. High income people will not be receiving the stimulus payment. It will phase out. It is $1,400 per family member, and that's a big change because it's now going to be $1,400 for husband, wife. It's going to be for each child who's 17 or younger. Before, it started at 16 and younger, but this is 17 and younger. And it will also go above 17 if the person is a dependent. But if you're dependent, if you're a student and you're a dependent on a parent's return, your parent will get the $1,400 and you will not as a student. It's all going to depend if you're a independent student or a dependent student. Basically, those people over $75,000, if you're a single, you won't get a check, and basically over 150,000, if you're a couple, you won't get a check if you're above that. Everything below that, it's going to be automatic. If you don't get it for some reason, you'll be able to take it as a deduction, as a credit, actually, another deduction on your tax return at the end of the year. Now, that's important to realize, by the way, just as a comment, if you didn't get your full stimulus in the past, when you're doing your tax return, please make sure you take a look and there's a place for you to get the credit or the stimulus payment on your return. It is a fully refundable payment, both in the past and going forward. The next item that everybody has been talking about is the unemployment extension from the federal level. Unemployment has been extended to 79 weeks under the bill. It used to be 50 weeks, it's now 79 weeks, but more importantly, the additional federal government, and that's where I made my typing here. I don't know how that happened. I must have saved it and it hit something. That should be for additional benefits. What it is that the unemployment will now be extended, the extra $300 a week, and it's $300, not the higher level, through September the 6th, 2021. So if you're on unemployment, or if you have people that you know that are on unemployment, they will get an extension of benefits that will go longer, plus the federal government will add extra money in. Now, those that are in business, we know that there's a problem with this because the problem is that adding that $300 makes it so that people that are getting unemployment sometimes exceed what they were getting paid. You need to understand that when you report to the unemployment that somebody won't return to work, they will not be eligible for unemployment. So if you make them a firm offer to return to work and they don't return to work, unless they fall into certain categories, they will become ineligible. The next item, which starts dealing with business issues, is they've extended the emergency loan program. They've extended the loan as it deals with a couple different issues. One, if you did not get your full EIDL loan, you can now apply for it and get the rest of the money. And that is going to go on to basically the end of the year until everything is used up. Plus you can get your advance, as it would be, which is $10,000 even if you don't get the rest of the loan, that's $10,000 that you can get upfront. Now, you need to understand that if you get that, in the past, it was taxable, but it is now not taxable if you don't use it and qualify for the rest of the EIDSL. I'm hesitating as I go along only because this is a major issue for people that have not yet applied. So you need to apply if you haven't done so. This is directly from the SBA. You can go on the SBA website and you can fill out the application right there. This is not through a bank. This is not through any credit union or through any other organization. It's an SBA direct loan. What's great about this loan is there is no personal guarantee. It is a secured loan per se, but it falls in line where whatever security you have with other banks. And in addition to that, they will allow this loan to be subordinated to other loans that you take out. But again, it doesn't show up on your personal credit, nor is there a personal guarantee. The next item is the payroll tax deferment. And what I mean by that is it's not really a deferment. What it is a tax credit. If you're going to go ahead and have your employees that you go ahead and give benefits to that are not working, you can go ahead and get a dollar for dollar credit against payroll taxes with some limitation, and particularly it's going to go up to $511 per week, and that's going to be through the end of March. So you need to talk with your payroll service or your accountant. A lot of these things, everybody's putting out a document out there right now that says this is what it means, this is where you're going to get treatment, how to get treatment. Please talk to a professional or actually read the code. And again, the code is hard to read. I just got through reading it, of course, for this presentation and for clients. And it's over 280 pages by the time you get done reading everything, because you got to refer back to other codes and other sections. And as I said, by the way, I just want to remind everybody, if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask them as we're going along. When we're in person, it's really easy because I can go along and talk to everybody and say, what do you think about this? What do you want to know? Unfortunately, in Zoom, we don't get that benefit. But again, I do want to answer questions as we go along. It actually makes it easier. And I'm checking the Q&A box periodically to make sure I have it all in line. There are a bunch of credits and benefits that we need to talk about that become important. For everybody out there that has a dependent that they provide care for, in other words, child care, care service, that child care credit, which is a refundable credit, is now gone from $3,000 to $8,000. So it's important to realize that you can now take a credit on your tax return for a lot more as it relates to your dependent care. This is for this year only. And it's important to realize that this is a one-year credit, an increase for the purposes of aiding everybody so that they get back to work. And the whole goal of the entire act is to get everybody back to work or generating income. When you look at the bill, and I'm not going to play politics here, but there's a lot of wasted money. There's billions of dollars that are set aside for special interests. There's no questions about it. And the amount of money that they've used to fund the governmental organizations in order to implement this is huge. But what is also huge is giving money to individuals and to businesses, and in particular, very specific businesses, in order to help them grow and move forward. But the dependent care assistance is huge. The other one that you need to talk about, which is is the child tax credit. And what that means is that people that are under the age of 18, you can now get a child care. Remember, they did away with the exemptions. It used to be you got an exemption on your tax return for each dependent child. That has gone away. Now you get a child care credit. And the child care credit starts again, depending on your income, for every $50, for every $1,000, you lose $50 of the credit. And that starts at the same level, 150,000 if for a joint, 112,500 for head of household, and $75,000 for single individuals. And what's interesting about that is most people that would be taking the credit would still be a head of household. So I don't know why the 75,000 was put in there. The child care credit is $3,000 for any child that's over the age of 6 up through the age of 17. And the other part of that is for children under 6, you get $3,600. And again, this is a refundable credit. Excuse me one second, I apologize. I normally don't do that, but there was a call that I had to hit. The Secretary of the Treasurer is supposed to come up with a program that will allow a advancement of this credit as needed. There's a lot of items within this bill that says they're going to come up with programs that are going to be implemented. They're not set forth in the bill because there's no way for administratively they could have done that. One of them is how to get the credit money to people either as a lump sum up front or as they go along. So we are going to have to wait and see how they're going to do that. But this child care credit is huge as far as the dollar amount and the people that are now covered. And again, it deals with people primarily under 150,000 if they're married, 75,000 single, and 112,000 if you're head of household. The other tax credits that we're dealing with is they've increased the earned income tax credit, and basically 19-year-olds above are going to get this credit, as well as now there's no age limit. It used to be you had a 65-year-old limit on receiving the earned income credit. That has now been done away with. And basically, it's going to be an earned income credit that you can take as a credit on your tax return based upon if you're a low income earner. And there's going to be a restriction that you're going to have to offset it if you have investment income test money of about $10,000. If you have income that comes in from that, despite where your other earned income is, you'll start losing the credit on that as well. The amount of that paid sick leave that I spoke about, which is $511 that as an employee you can take. So it's very important for you to be able to remember that if you need that, you can take that credit. That's going to be good for 10 days. And it's to aid you to, in order to allow your employees to take additional sick pay in addition to what you normally would be giving. So if you've given sick pay and you pay for that, and in addition to your normal, then what you do is on your tax return for your employment taxes, you take a $511 credit per employee, or based upon up to that amount, depending what you're paying per day. You should work that out with your payroll service. I do not know that. I know a lot of people use QuickBooks directly. I am not sure how they're going ahead and deal with that. One of the other additions that you need to be aware of if you're self-employed, and again, I don't have time to go through the full formula for you, but if you're self-employed, this now gives you a credit for self-employment for sick. So if you need to take some additional time off for sickness and you're self-employed, there's a formula that you can use, which will then be credited against your share of part of the Social Security tax that you have to pay. And the tax credit only deals with what the employer is paying. So therefore, I presume when the regulation comes out, it's only going to deal with the portion that would be equal to the employer side. So it's important to understand there's credits there now for self-employed people. There's a credit dealing with for retention of employees. And that's basically if your business has been shut down, partially or fully shut down, and you continue to pay them, there is also a credit that's available that you're allowed to take. Again, it's going to be against your employment taxes, and then it will be refundable for money that you're paying the employee if you're a shut down business. This has a lot to do with a lot of the businesses out here dealing with restaurants, a lot of the winery tours. We have other businesses that have been shut down, theaters, things of that nature. So keep in mind, if you've continued to employ your people and you've been ordered shut down, you will be able to receive a credit. We're going to have to wait for the regulations on this, but I would suspect now that we can open up to 25%, a lot of people will keep people working more than just the 25% they can have, and that they should be able to qualify for part of this credit. As I said, the EIDL advances will now not be taxable, and that's important, especially because of people that elect a subchapter S. They'll be able to go ahead now and not have to declare that an income on their pass-through on their K-1s. An accountant will have to work with you on that, but that is a very big change. The other thing is they've come out with any student loan that is forgiven between the first of this year through 2025, the forgiveness of the student loan will not be taxable. In the past, any student loan would be treated just like any other loan that you have. When it's forgiven, you have to declare that as income with certain exceptions. Now they're saying that if the student loan forgiveness will not be taxed, I suspect that's in anticipation of some form of a large forgiveness that's going to be coming out shortly. The other thing that you need to keep in mind is that the student loan extensions in place as far as not having to make payments or interest, and that will continue in place. One of the big changes which took effect with the last go around of stimulus package is that there is a forgiveness of the PPP loan, and you can just subtract all of the deductions, because otherwise it was like you had income anyway. So you were only getting like 30% of the PPP money because you had to pay 30% of it back as income taxes. There's a limitation that you have to keep in mind with that. Basically, it's 150,000. Anything above that, we have to deal with certain deductions. But what we're dealing with, though, is more importantly, is you got to look at the difference with the state of California. A lot of people filed extensions this last week because the state has not totally implemented its rules to bring it in compliance. The federal rule is 100% is going to be non-taxable, and you can take all the deductions. The state is going to put a cap at it at the 150, and that's where the 150,000 comes in. As we go into the EIDL and other items, you need to understand we're going to deal with affiliates and things of that nature, and that's going to actually bring me to the biggest item that I want to talk about. This is going to be for restaurants. This is probably the biggest stimulus portion of this for businesses that are involved in restaurants. And basically what has happened is they've come up with a program where if you are a restaurant, you have a food stand, a food truck, a food cart, if you're a caterer, a salon, an inn, a tavern, a bar, brew pub, you produce alcohol beverages, wineries, there's going to be a grant that's going to be out there. And it's important, there's different categories of this grant as far as timing, but it's going to be on a first come, first served basis. They have not issued out the regulations for this yet, how to apply, but you need to do it as quick as you can. There are 2 carve-outs in here. Businesses that had less than $500,000 in sales will be given a special priority, and those that are disadvantaged, economic disadvantage, both women business, economic disadvantage, and veterans, during the first 21 days, they're going to be subject to the grant before anybody else. And the way the grant's going to work is the difference between your 2019 income and your 2020 income. So if you had $1 million in 19 and you had only 500,000 in 20, you will be eligible for a grant of $500,000 less any PPP money you've gotten and or the EIDL loan. So basically, if you got 150 in the EIDL and you got 300,000, you'd get a $50,000 grant. There's some talk that the EIDL loan may not be charged against it, but this is very important. What you're going to deal with is that if you had $5 million and you dropped to $3 million and you only got 100,000 or 500,000 in EIDL/PPP money, you're going to have a huge grant. The grant is that. It is not taxable. The grant is your money. You have to use it for very specific things, which we'll talk about in a moment. Now, there's a problem here with this program. If you have more than 20 locations directly or through an affiliate means if you own 50% of a business or an organization, you are not eligible for the restaurant grant. We have a lot of people that we know that have 30 franchise locations directly, or they own investments in several of them where they're 50% owners. They have lost horrendous amount of money. It could be, IHOP locations or various other restaurants that lost huge amount of money. They're not eligible because they have over 20 locations. Um, the other part of it is there is provisions that if you opened up after January of 2020, that you are going to be eligible for this grant, but there are no regulations now as it relates to how that's going to apply. This is called the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, and they've actually put $28 billion into this fund for you to have. The most any restaurant will be able to deal with is you're going to be able to get $5 million up to $10 million, depending on the location. And again, those are going to be some huge restaurants that would be eligible. But again, the first, if you have under 500,000, you're going to be subject to the first phase. Then you're going to be able to, excuse me, then the next eligibility will be for those in 21 days for those people that are entitled to preference, and then it's going to be open up to the general public. They're probably going to be starting to actually do the funds after 60 days. It's going to take that long in order for the program to be put in place. I'm sorry, I'm just grabbing my notes here. The total grants can't exceed $10 million nor $5 million for one physical location. As I stated, the operation is you own or operate 20 locations through an affiliate. So if you own 15 and then you're operating another 5 for somebody else, you reach that 20 level. You have to use the money. So this becomes important from a planning standpoint. You need to use the money for very specific things. It's going to be for rent. It's going to be for mortgage payments, payroll costs. You can deal for furnishings. You can go ahead and deal with inventory. It's not to be taken out as profit. So if there's going to be expenses that aren't eligible, there may be major tenant improvements you want to do. There may be things that don't fall within this category. What you need to do is open up an account for this grant and pay all this money that is eligible from that account. Your other profits, if everything works right, that you're going to start getting new profits, that money you can use for ineligible. You need to talk to your accountant. You need to make sure that you're keeping an understanding of where this money is and how it's being allocated, and to keep track of it. You can use it for paying sick leave and all operational expenses. That's probably, out of anything that was passed, that's probably the most important thing that came out of the bill, and especially for this community, between the wineries, between restaurants, and other supporting organizations that we have that will support them, that will keep coming through. One of the things that also has become clear is a huge amount of the nonprofit organizations that will now be eligible for the PPP money. They keep adding more and more nonprofits that are eligible, and that's important to understand, that you will be able to qualify for the PPP. The big thing is the nonprofits that do any type of lobbying that has more than 50% related to lobbying will not be able to qualify for the PPP. All the other rules that passed with the other ones that put new restrictions, they're still in place. This is supplemental, and they've opened up the amount of organizations that will now qualify. If you have any concerns or questions, you should either talk to a lending institution and or you should talk to an accountant or an attorney that is well versed. Those are the main issues regarding the plan. There was the big conversation about what this all meant. I'm going to go into a couple other areas that do have an effect on our community, but most of the other items were not dealing with direct stimulus that's going to help businesses here. Um, there are some other interesting items. I don't know if we have anybody from the health industry on. There are some new programs that have been put in place uh, dealing with public health investment, including education, including helping people become nurses, doctors, grants that are there. There's over $7 billion that have been set aside for that, and in particular, teaching centers. So if you are involved in teaching and you're involved in mental health, and also an awareness campaign about mental health, you should take a look into grants that are now going to be given out and learn how to apply for them. Again, unfortunately, we don't have any details of the application process, but there's going to be $7 billion out there for that. There's also going to be assistance out there for what they call the older Americans, grand families, and kinship families, trying to help a lot with vaccination, how to get people aware of the ability to get vaccination and get people to vaccination sites. There's a whole bunch of special set-asides for endowments for the arts, the sciences, and so forth. But one of the items that need to be looked at, and it's going to be from the city, county, and individual organizations that are directly involved with the arts, whether it's our theater or maybe some private art programs. There's going to be grants that are going to be set aside for organizations that support or involved in the covering expenses for the arts program. That's under the National Endowment for the Arts. They didn't put a lot of money in there when we're talking about billions before. They set aside 135 million for that. There's also programs that have been set aside. We've all heard about the program for the city schools and the public schools. There's also $2 billion that have been set aside to help private schools, non-public schools. And again, we're not sure what they stand for, but I know we have a lot of private schools and we have a lot of care centers, child care centers. We need to take a look at that, and you need to follow through with your accountant, more importantly, an attorney. And I know the chamber will be putting out announcements about this, that there's going to be money that's going to be allocated, particularly for organizations that are helping first responders, as it would be. There's also a lot dealing with that money that will go to institutions that are dealing with equality programs for people that are underserved. I'm just watching the time here. There is also money. I know we have a lot of organizations, I should say, farm organizations, farm programs out here where the farms are owned by minority category people. There is extra grants that have been set aside for small and mid-sized food processors, distributors, and organizations that are primarily dealing with individuals that fall within a defined class within the grants that need to be looked at. they call them, the bill calls it socially disadvantaged farmers and ranchers. And it's a way to either forgive the debt, pay off debt, or help grow. Uh, and a socially disadvantaged farmer is set forth in the codes, in the actual code. So if you think you fall within that category, which is a minority ownership, business ownership, or women ownership, you should take a look at that. There's also going to be funds that are used for helping credit for various businesses that you have. Those people that are in need of housing, there are vouchers that are going to be given out for helping to pay mortgage payments as well as rent. Again, that's something to keep in mind, but we have yet to get the actual information about that yet. There's a huge dollar amount that has been set aside to help with the homeless. I don't know if we have anybody on the program, but there's a lot of people that we have in the community that are dealing with the problems with the homeless, both for children and adults. There are grants that are going to be set up for those people that are helping, or those organizations that are helping. And you need to be aware of those. Read the bill on that, or at least the guidelines that are going to be issued out. It's probably going to come out from the Secretary of Housing, and that's where that's going to be provided to. There's also provisions for dealing with what we call shuttered venues. There's some additional funds that have been given out if you have a program. And a venue is somebody who is putting on an entertainment program. It's not because you have entertainment that you have with your winery music. It's going to be if you have an actual program, will you be able to get grants that are going to be non-taxable in order to be of assistance. There was a lot we went over, and I know that a lot of it is, I'm not giving any hard nose, this is what you do, this is what has to be done, because they haven't been issued yet. But these are the programs. And the biggest part, I want to make sure everybody who's involved in the restaurant industry, you get in touch with the SBA. You watch what's going on. I know the chamber's going to be dealing with it. I'm sure, Paul Nolta's group is going to be dealing with it, and stay on top of this as quick as you can. With that, I was told to go for 45 minutes, and that's why if I talk fast, I apologize. I'm open to any questions anybody might have. Please let me know what they are. No questions? Sharon, do you have any?
Let's see. I can't open up my video, but I do see a question come in. Let's check. Okay.
Okay, I just got a question is, can restaurant use both PPP and restaurant grant funds? Yes. What's going to happen is that you'll get the grant less the PPP money that you received. Any other questions? Well, if that's the case, I've done everything I can do. Thank you very much for attending. And if you have any other questions, you can send them to the chamber and they'll get them to me. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Robert, for speaking and presenting and allowing us to understand this Rescue Act. It was a wealth of information, and I will be able to provide this recording to anyone that has registered and has submitted their email address in the chat box. And also, if you have any questions or need resources, please feel free to reach out to the Temecula Chamber office. We'll be more than happy to assist you. And I think we are good. There are no questions, and we are good with time. Thank you all for participating and attending. Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.